There was a time when DC animation was the medium that fully embraced the source material with specific standalone feature films or shorts that were direct translations of a story arc or graphic novel, to the degree of wanting to mimic the art of a comic they were pulling from for a project. Even with their more original movies and TV shows that took inspiration from an amalgamation of comics, there was still a lot of variety and uniqueness in the creative talent, art style, and animation. There wasn't really a homogeneous feel to it, but once the DC animated movie universe started kicking into high gear, that sense of variety and willingness to adapt comic stories as closely as possible started to fade. There were still direct adaptations of iconic stories, don't get me wrong, but they started to lose sauce as time went by. The animation started to decline, the art style started to look too similar across the various movies coming out, and the writers started taking weird creative liberties just for the sake of being different. Even with some of the TV shows, they just weren't hitting the same. But with some of the animated shows and movies greenlit under DC Studios, it seems they might be getting their priorities in order again, realizing what future installments should be put on the slate to properly capture the mythology of the wider DC universe. From around 2013 to 2024, DC started to prioritize entries that were part of the same continuity, starting with the DC AMU, which began with Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox in 2013 and ended with Justice League Dark Apocalypse War in 2020. This was then followed up by the Tomorrowverse, a byproduct of what happened at the end of Apocalypse War, but it only lasted 4 years. The art style of these universes aren't bad, but it starts to get boring when so many of these animated feature films look the same. I understood why they did this with specific movies, so that it could better convey that they took place in the same universe, but even standalone entries started to lose some of their visual sauce and became unremarkable visually. Compare that to the Superman Batman movies that embodied the art style of the books they pulled from, or Batman Year One mimicking David Mazzucchelli's artwork, All-Star Superman resembling the work of Frank Quitely. They had the luxury of being unique since they were doing their own separate thing. So if they wanted to adapt stories like Batman Hush or The Long Halloween, but wanted them to be a part of an established animated universe, they'd essentially hinder the potential of those specific adaptations because they now have to embody the visual flair of numerous other projects and work around the established continuity, which results in certain moments not being adapted to their fullest extent. I mean, look at the visuals of the Long Halloween limited series versus the animated two-parter. Damn near all of the sauce was revoked. Not only that, but lower profile DC characters had been getting their own featured movies or short films at a significantly less frequent rate. Even more recognizable heroes like Wonder Woman have only gotten 2 animated movies throughout her entire publication history. Green Lantern has had only a few, The Flash only has Flashpoint Paradox, Green Arrow doesn't have a full-length animated movie or TV show anywhere in sight. Obviously, Batman has been the one exception to this. He has been and will continue to get movies and TV shows till the end of time. Batman fans will simply never go hungry with the amount of content at our disposal. But there are 2 upcoming projects that, if well executed, could set a good precedent for the future of DC animation and how it could change for the better, or at least go back to what made it so special. The first is Absolute Batman getting a direct adaptation via an animated series.
There's no way, there's no way, there's no way. Say you swear to God. Say you swear to God. Put that on Allah. Say, put that on Allah. Say wallahi, bro. Say wallahi.
Writer Scott Snyder will serve as the showrunner and executive producer, and the artist of the book, Nick Dragotta, will also be a producer. It's in the early stages of development and is set to be fully CG. I personally would have preferred 2D animation, but the fact that this show was greenlit is a huge step in the right direction. I've been saying for the longest time that DC needs to take a page out of the anime and manga playbook, where they take successful ongoing comics and just turn them into hit animated shows, directly adapting the story and not making any significant changes. This is one of the reasons why manga is so successful, given how new reader friendly it is to the average consumer. The Absolute Universe has been an excellent gateway for getting more people into comics, due to the lineup of books not requiring any prior knowledge of the characters or having a continuity that's hard to keep track of. Absolute Batman #1 was the best-selling single issue comic of 2024, and the series has sold more than 6 million copies since its debut. The amount of buzz it's been getting in and outside the comic space has been insane. If this animated series is successful, you are going to see an increase in the sales of Absolute Batman trade paperbacks and single issues. I bring up the manga comparison because often you'll see people hear about a new popular anime or whatever, check it out, and really enjoy it. A well-beloved manga series being told in a show format benefits both the show and the book because if viewers reach the end of a season but don't want to wait another 2 years for the show to continue, they can just pick up and continue where they left off by reading the book and getting caught up, getting even more excited for moments that will inevitably make their way to the TV show. This model aligns perfectly with Absolute Batman because because they're not stopping with that series anytime soon. Scott Snyder intends to keep it going and has already mapped out the story through issue 50. Before the Jujutsu Kaisen anime came out, it had around 4.5 million copies sold worldwide. After the first season of the anime aired, the manga sold over 50 million copies that year. As of December 2025, it had over 150 million copies in circulation. You're already seeing success with non-anime series like Invincible, where the creator of the comic, Robert Kirkman, is heavily involved in the development process of each season. Invincible compendium sales went up after the show debuted on Prime Video. Yes, there are differences present in the show, but they're not so significant that it fundamentally changes the story. From what I've seen, both show-only watchers and the readers of the original comics seem satisfied thus far. Well, I guess minus the animation, cause Invincible's been getting flamed online for its animation quality. No. I'm sick and tired of the BS excuse some creatives try to give for wanting to make changes to a story they're adapting, because if they adapt it one-to-one, it won't surprise people who have already read the story and might hinder their enjoyment or investment in what could happen next. This is a nonsensical way of thinking for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the average person does not read comic books, so a movie or show adaptation would be most people's first exposure to that story. Secondly, fans of a graphic novel or comic series want to see their favorites adapted in full effect, seeing some of their favorite moments brought to life in a way that could enhance what was on the page. If anything, making changes that don't serve the story would just end up pissing off fans of the source material. That's not to say changes in general aren't welcome. You can absolutely have some differences if they come from a place of wanting to enhance the story, maybe help with the pacing, further develop characters, or cut out unnecessary fluff. All that stuff is fine, but ultimately, people just want to see what they've read translated into a different medium, and casual audiences probably aren't going to be familiar with what's being adapted anyway. Absolute Batman isn't even the only DC book that's getting this type of treatment in terms of getting an animated series. The Mr. Miracle show is set in the DCU and is based on Tom King's 12-issue book. Tom King is the series' showrunner, head writer, and executive producer. Mitch Gerads was the artist of the book, and he's involved in the creative process of the show, so that its art style will resemble that of the comic. The voice actors for characters in the show like Mr. Miracle, Big Barda, and Darkseid are set to play them in live-action DCU projects as well. Tom King is taking the approach of taking into account feedback from fans of the book to enhance certain scenes or give more clarification on certain moments.
It has emotional effect on people. It's a very emotional story.
Yeah, it is.
And so people tell me, oh, this part really meant a lot to me, or this part was confusing. And so recreating it, I can be like, this was the part that meant the most to fans, let's lean into that, or this part needed some clarification, we can clarify that. But I can, having talked to so many fans about this book, I can bring out what they loved in it in the series, so it's just been a joy.
Part of me wishes that Supergirl was an animated movie or miniseries that was just a direct adaptation of Woman of Tomorrow, where they could incorporate all the cosmic elements and the vibrant visuals that were absent in the movie. The only reason Supergirl had her own movie in the DCU was because James Gunn really liked the Woman of Tomorrow book and thought it was a story worth telling in his interconnected universe.
When we were talking on the phone before we took this job.
That's right.
Do you remember this?
Of course.
And we're on the phone. I remember I was in my kitchen and I was like, you know, if we took this job, something that would make a really good movie is Tom King's and Bill Keith's Woman of Tomorrow.
Yeah, you said it, but not only that, you also said, you know who'd be a great Supergirl?
Who'd be a good Supergirl?
And you said the young princess from House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
Giving that story the Mr. Miracle treatment with either a miniseries or alternatively an animated feature film that follows the original story as closely as possible would have been the way to go, especially with its overall look, because compared to the comic, the movie was lacking a bit in the visual department.
The book was better.
One of the upcoming animated projects I'm most looking forward to is the Batman Knightfall trilogy. I'm surprised it took them this long to make an animated movie about one of the most iconic Batman stories of all time, but better late than never, I guess. A South Korean animation studio animated the trilogy, the same studio that animated The Legend of Korra, the first 2 seasons of My Adventures with Superman, X-Men 97, and many others. It makes sense to divide the overall story into multiple films in order to encompass the full extent of the storyline, with part 1 focusing on Bane enacting his plan to put Batman and Gotham through hell, and Batman wanting to handle certain tasks by himself after the death of Jason Todd. I'm glad they're finally going back to embracing a specific art style, with the designs of the characters being emblematic of the interiors of Knightfall, as well as the cover art by Kelly Jones.
I'm getting hard. I'm getting hard!
It's also a good thing that DC is going back to standalone movies instead of having a shared movie universe like the DC AMU and the Tomorrowverse. And with the leadership at DC Studios, there seems to be more of a shift towards greenlighting a multitude of TV shows ranging from known, expected characters to more unconventional wildcard picks that set out to appeal to specific audiences and convey different tones. The Starfire animated show is geared more toward a younger audience with 11-minute adventures to serve as episodes. DC Superpowers is another kid-oriented animated series that features certain DC characters as students and others as teachers at Justice League Academy, and is said to be inspired by the Superpowers toy lineup from the 1980s. My Adventures with Green Lantern is a spin-off of My Adventures with Superman, made by the same creative team, which follows Jessica Cruz becoming a Green Lantern while attending Hal Jordan Memorial High School. The Joker is getting his own anime, where he attempts to find Batman's killer through Gotham's underworld. His violent quest for answers pushes him closer toward a vigilante than a villain, and he learns that he doesn't know who he is without Batman. The rate in which these shows are getting announced demonstrates that they're willing to get a bit wacky with it, making projects that can appeal to a wide array of audiences. But I feel like there's someone missing. A character who has yet to receive an animated series of their own. Plastic Man? Nah, he had one in the late 70s. Maybe Shazam? Nah, he also had one around that same time period. I know Aquaman had one in the late 60s and another one in recent years. Oh, of course, how could I forget?
Where the hell is the Wonder Woman animated show?
I don't know! I would not let them tell me!
Alright, whose toes do I have to suck to get a Wonder Woman show off the ground? Because there is absolutely no excuse at this point. You have over 80 years worth of comics both in and outside the main continuity to pick and choose from for potential stories. Are you gonna look me dead in the eyes and tell me that Starfire and Jessica Cruz have better mass audience appeal for a cartoon? I mean, no disrespect to those characters. I'm glad they're getting their own shows, but like, come on, man. In the past few years, Beast Boy has gotten his own series, Kite Man is a spin-off of the Harley Quinn show, the Suicide Squad got their own anime, the Creature Commandos have their own thing going on, Blue Beetle is reportedly getting an animated series in the DCU, not to mention Batman and Superman have their own ongoing animated shows in the current day. But Wonder Woman can't even get one? Michael, you seen this nonsense? But nah, wouldn't you rather see Crypto get another animated project?
Blow that piece of junk out of the sky!
James Gunn has gone on record stating that there's been attempts to get Wonder Woman into more animation, and that it was one of the first things he brought up to the animation team when he was brought on board, which was stated 3 years ago, and there's been no updates since. If they don't announce something within the next year or two, I'm gonna have to march down to DC Studios and give them a good old talking to. Warner Brothers Animation out here giving Wonder Woman the Mbappe special.
What's the Mbappe special?
For example, nothing. For the moment, nothing.
The most I could see happening is the potential success of Absolute Batman enticing DC Studios to create animated shows based on other Absolute titles, which would include Absolute Wonder Woman. I would prefer the first animated series on the character to be more of a traditional take, but if this is the only way to convince them to make a Wonder Woman cartoon in any capacity, then so be it. But besides that, I think the future of DC animation is looking bright. They're finally ditching the shared universe concept that started to become stale and eventually fell flat as time went on. All I've wanted for the longest time is for animated feature films centered on DC characters to have their own identity that resembled specific comics both from a story perspective and its visuals, if it's a direct translation of a beloved storyline. I would love to see more TV shows that take the approach of Invincible and Absolute Batman. There's a goldmine of opportunity to get newcomers and casual audiences into the world of DC that they might not be too familiar with. It's often said that animation is the best medium for comics, and that sentiment has remained true for a reason.